welcome to ScreenHour with me, Kieran.
And me, Mikey.
Where we will discuss the latest releases of films, series and games, regarding our own impressions and experiences. We will also warn you before we deep dive into any spoilers.
So this week, we're going to be talking about Amazon Prime's Air.
Well, is it Amazon Prime? Because I went to the cinema to see it.
Amazon Studios. So
is it Amazon Studios?
this is why Amazon are even better than Disney Plus, and depending on which way you look at it. When did you watch it in the cinema?
Fuck.
About a month ago, I think.
I think about yeah.
And it's already on Amazon Prime because it's an Amazon Studios production.
And to be fair, I think it's been on Amazon Prime for about
For the last 2 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah, I think it was literally in the cinema for like a week, maybe 2, before it was jumped onto Prime. Because I got back and I was like, flipping through Prime, and I was like, oh, see, didn't have to spend fucking 16 quid at the cinema. I could have watched it at home.
Exactly. Not to get too sidetracked before we even talk about the film, but this is why I'm very much depending on what it is. If it's a Disney film, or a Fox film, or an Amazon Studios film, unless I really want to watch it at the cinema, or I'm really excited for it, I don't think I will watch it in cinema now.
Yeah, because why when you're already paying your subscriptions? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm already paying my subscriptions. Apple films, I don't think Apple films particularly go to cinemas too often.
I don't think I've known of an Apple film goes to the cinema, to be honest. I think most of them go straight to the subscription service. But I mean, for me, straight off the bat, like, I think Air is a good film. I think it's decent. I think it's a good watch. But again, I don't think you need to go to cinema to see it. Like, I don't even think you can see it at the cinema now anyway. But I think watching it on Prime is more than enough, because it's not like a big Hollywood blockbuster, is it? It's a drama. What do they call it? It's like a drama documentary or something.
It's like a drama biopic type of thing.
Oh, but yeah, drama biopic. Thanks.
Yeah, Kieran's right in the sense that the type of story it is and the type of film it is, it doesn't lend itself. Like, obviously, you could say any film is better in the cinema, which it is. But the same as Kieran says, it's not a film which is very action heavy. Well, there's no action in it. Like,
there's not even fucking basketball.
There's barely any basketball. They're all VHS fucking tapes. But to my point, like, before, not to like splooge our load too much type of thing.
Too early.
Too early. Me personally, I'd think it'll be like an orange badge or like a yellow badge for us, because you can't see it in the cinema anymore, which is part of the problem, really, I suppose. But like, the other one is like, it is just an interesting film. It's a lot better than I expected, so I'm leaning more towards green badge. But you can't see it in the cinema anyway, so by our like rules we've made.
Well, we say green is like you see it as soon as you can. Like, it's really worthwhile seeing. So even if it's not cinema, like, it is a big watch, worth watching sort of thing.
But it also seems like, because you've got Amazon Prime, a lot of people do. Like, I'd say, because people use it so much as a consumer for buying stuff, like getting next day delivery. I know loads of people have Prime. It is just watch it, like, because it could have cost you no extra, and it's such a good film.
Yeah, so I think I think the first thing you should know going in is, like, as we've already kind of alluded to, is that it's not a basketball film. Like, it's not like you're watching Rocky and it's a boxing film. This is about Nike hiring Michael Jordan. It's not about Michael Jordan playing basketball. It's about Nike getting him on board. That's the film. It's all about Nike, and it's in the offices. So it's that sort of film. It's kind of like I'm trying to think of another film. It's kind of like I think it's called Worth, which is Michael Keaton. It's a brilliant film, and he basically has to decide the worth of each person that was killed during 9/11. So, but like the buyouts for the families, right? It's like it's a really slow film, and it's not gonna you're not gonna jump for joy watching it. You're not gonna be laughing out loud and stuff. But it's a really interesting sort of film. But it's got that sort of vibe to it where it's more methodical in its approach to things, whereas Air, there's a lot more comedy involved. It's less of a darker topic.
Yeah, and so I might cut you off there, and I'm going to presume and hope that, well, I know that hair's a lot more uplifting than a film about 9/11.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more uplifting. But I mean, if you Worth is a solid film, and there's another one I think called Richard Jewell, I think, which just popped into my head, and it was a security guard that tried to stop a bomb threat at like a festival. I think it might be directed by Clint Eastwood. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I remember that coming out. Yeah,
And he tries to save everyone, but he becomes suspect number one. It's about him trying to clear his name, right? And this sort of film is like it's like in that category sort of thing. It's the documentary, but it's like a proper sort of it's like a solid telling of a real life event. You know, when you get these sort of films where it says, "Oh, inspired by true events," but it's a bit too wacky, or it's a bit too overboard, or it's not believable. It's one of these ones that's really grounded. It's really knows its footing and it knows how to tell its story. And this sort of fits in that category of Richard Jewell, Worth, and Air. But Air is probably the most uplifting one. The music as well really helps with the uplifting.
yeah, it very really like leans into like late 80s absolute bangers, and like you Kieran says, it's all the music's fun, like, and it also like leans into like that electric like funk type of like thing type of music,
Like synth, yeah.
proper synth music, and Run DMC, because that's one of like the things they allude to. Is I thought it was alluded to that like Nike were going to go under, but like they weren't going under. It's just they weren't performing as well
As Adidas or
as Converse and Adidas. And something what they like say about the Run DMC music is Run DMC wore Adidas tracksuits and trainers in their music videos, so it really pushed, and they wore them like all the time. So that's one of the reasons what pushed Adidas so well. So that was one of like the reasons Nike was failing quite a bit. But like as Kieran says, it's such a good biopic. But what's interesting about it for me, and like, such a good positive, is that it still kept me interested, even though I knew what happened. Like it's not, you don't have to be mega into your Nike shoes to know that he signs up, like, or you know that Nike's basketball range doesn't go under. So you think to yourself, like, well, how is this going to keep me like invested? Like I usually like joke and like say around like, oh, your stakes, or like keeps you wondering or whatever.
Mm.
And there isn't any of that because you know what happens, because it's, you know, it's very based on true story and it's done well. But whether it's mostly because of Matt Damon's performance.
Yeah, I think everyone like really acts their socks off in this. I think they bring their A game and they really give solid performances that you just want to. You're invested in their characters and you want to sort of see where their characters go. You know, because to be honest, I never thought about Matt Damon and Jason Bateman having good chemistry. I never thought about putting them two on screen together before, but it really worked. And I think it's good to see Ben Affleck and Matt Damon working together again. I feel like we haven't seen them work together for a long time, and all of a sudden they come back and they've done several movies again together, such as Last Duel.
Last Duel, you spoke about Last Duel recently. That's why I like Last Duel's really good. I think what it tries to do, it done something at the start which is quite good. Which is more into spoilers, but it's we'll talk about in a bit. Spoilers. But it's just the way it establishes Matt Damon's character, the way he gels with the other characters works really well. All the casting is pretty spot on. Michael Jordan's mom being played by Viola Davis
It's really good.
is spot on. But like I also like, this is a positive, don't get wrong, but I feel like for the last, if you need a strong female black character who's over the age of 35, I just feel like Viola Davis has fitted that bill.
Viola Davis or Angela Bassett, one of the.
Angela Bassett, but like, yeah, and she's really fit that bill. But there's nothing wrong with that because she really does fit that bill and she smashes it. It's quite a tight film. I don't feel like there's no scene which is wasted. There's no scene I look back now and think, fuck, that was a waste. That was a bit of slack. It could have been cut. That was boring. And what I liked about it as well is, like, I used to be into basketball when I was a kid a bit, but like I vaguely know it now. But it's a bit like Ted Lasso in the sense that for you to enjoy it, you don't need to know anything about the sport.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've binge watched Ted Lasso recently, so I'll use that as an example. But like, it's very much like that, and the references they make in it, because they're made in such a way which in the context, like Magic Johnson. Like, I've heard of Magic Johnson, but that's because it's so big and stuff like that. But like, don't get me wrong, all the other references just make sense. That eases on through. I quite like that. I know I like 80s type of stuff as well. Like,
Well, you do. That's your jam.
yeah, I like that. Was nice. It's a nice setting for it to be in.
Ben Affleck's outfit was sick. I loved it. I was like, can we bring that back?
And sunglasses.
Yeah.
His running outfit made me crease. Like, he looked like he was wearing like 6 layers to go running.
Yeah, those like neon trousers, like neon leggings or whatever. I was like, bring that shit back.
It was quite interesting to see. Probably more so because of the type of like age I am and like I'm a bloke or whatever. But like my other favourite Matt Damon role is like, I like Good Will Hunting as well because I've got half a brain. Good Will Hunting's a fucking great film. But like him as Jason Bourne's probably like, when I think of Matt Damon, that's what pokes into my head. But he looks so different in this. Putting it off, me and Kieran saw Jason Bourne in cinema together years ago.
And Ben fell asleep.
Yeah. He's absolutely a machine in Jason Bourne, Matt Damon. It was a few years ago, don't get me wrong, but looks so different in this.
2018 or 2016? 2017.
2017, Jason Bourne came out, yeah.
To be honest, I actually literally last night I rewatched Le Mans 66, I think, with him and Christian Bale.
No, actually, that is on my list. I haven't got round to that yet. Apparently, it's great.
Yeah, I watched that. That is a fucking brilliant film. Like,
it's James Mangold in it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I say the acting from Christian Bale in that is because he's got a proper West Midlands accent.
Yeah, isn't Christian? Yeah, all right, 2016, Jason Bourne was, but he's from Sutton Coldfield, his character, isn't he?
Yeah, Ken Miles, but because he's actually from Wales himself, Christian Bale from Haverfordwest.
Yeah, I knew he was Welsh.
How mad is that? Like, he's from Haverfordwest. That's like what, 20 miles from you or something?
Yeah, probably about 25, 30 miles, like, yeah.
And he was fucking Batman.
The best Batman.
All controversial.
Yeah, it's. I didn't think. There's a few things it makes you believe, and me personally now, I couldn't. It makes you believe Nike's an underdog.
Yeah.
And like, since I've been like on this planet, you would never think Nike's an underdog in any respect, to the point where, even now, and I was talking to Charlotte about like them in the running community, because I know fuck all about like basketball compared to now, but like obviously I do a bit about running, do a bit of running, is they own the running shoe market, because the bloke who broke the unofficial sub 2 hour marathon record, I can barely pronounce his name, he's got a mad name, Elia Capucci, whatever his name is, but he's he's a fucking superhuman. He wore Nike Vaporflies, a version of their shoes, and like their running shoes are £250. They're like the best shoes on the market, because they like, but also again, that's endorsement. But no, it makes you believe Nike is an underdog in that respect. Like, I've got Nike running shoes. They're like fucking unbelievable. But it's hard for you to think in any respect Nike would ever be an underdog.
Yeah. To be honest, I think these days I probably would say that Nike was probably the one that was most at the top of their game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, it's so hard for you to believe that. I know it was like 30 odd years ago. Well, over 30 odd years ago, this is set.
The 80s, so what, 40?
It does make you just interested it's about the shoe. That's honestly what the film is about, and about Michael Jordan, don't get it wrong, but it makes you interested about the shoe.
To be fair, if you really want to take it down to the bare bones and be like, yeah, this film's about a shoe, like, you're like, what? But it is. It really is what it's all about. It's about a shoe. I haven't thought about it like that.
You think to yourself, why would that be interesting? But it honestly is. It's mostly conveyed by Matt Damon's monologues, or him having cool speeches with certain people and back and forth. There's one character which really didn't hit with me, and it's Chris Tucker's character, which just didn't. There's a scene with him, and I was like, that just really didn't sit well with me. That's a bit fucked. But it's just, every character smashed it. Every actor smashes it.
I think my favourite scene there's a bit when Matt Damon's trying to convince Ben Affleck, like we give Michael Jordan all of the money rather than divvying it up and giving it to like 3 different players. We give him all the money, and he's trying to convince him. And I really enjoyed that little bit when it's in his office. But I think one of my favorite scenes actually was when he goes to the house.
Spoilers. Yeah, when he gets to the house.
Yeah, is that a spoiler? I don't know. But yeah, when he goes to the house and he meets Viola Davis. Well, he meets Michael Jordan's dad first, and he was like, "You better talk to the boss," right? And then Viola Davis comes out. She sits down at the table. And she's just giving him these eyes, like, I don't take no shit from nobody. And it was just the way he sort of eases it out, sort of thing. And he says, you'll go to these other meetings, and they'll have expensive watches on, and they'll say it like this and they'll say it like that. And then when they go to the meetings, they do that, and they have the expensive watches, and then, ask them who's in charge. And they were like, oh, well, we are all in charge, right? And then it's like, well, no, I make the decisions. And it's like, well, no, we're all make the decisions. She was like, see, no one knows who's actually in charge there. So he's basically saying he knows the scene. So put your faith in us at Nike, and we can deliver for you.
That's probably one of my favourite bits, that is, because it shows how, like, later on, like, it shows how he's right.
Yeah.
And it goes back and forth. It shows Viola Davis going into the means and showing, like, basically Matt Damon predicted it just spot on top thing, and it was so accurate. But, like, while we're speaking about that now, like, before we get into, like, quick spoilers, but what they have spoke about to, like, address the elephant, or the one of the greatest of all time, well, basketball players, is he isn't in the film. He is in the film, and he isn't in the film. They addressed it. Ben Affleck addressed it in, like, an interview recently, saying he didn't want Michael Jordan's face in the film, or, like, him to be actually in it, or have a speaking lines or whatever, or even, like, a young actor to be Michael Jordan, because he didn't want that Michael Jordan, because he's such a presence and such, like, notorious character, in a good way, it's like infamous or whatever, to take away too much from the story. Because, like Kieran has said, and I've said, it's about Nike, it's about the shoe, and about them building their legacy with Jordan. And I really feel through the conduit and vehicle of Viola Davis, like Michael Jordan's mum, they do it really well like that. It's not like you're missing Michael Jordan. If you go in with the expectations of, like we said, this isn't the story of Michael Jordan, and you know that it's the story of Nike, I feel like you should be happy with the way they handle him, and his lack of screen presence. But it's worth knowing that before you go in. I knew that before I went in, so I wasn't like, oh, where's Michael Jordan? I want to see him playing basketball. But I think it's done well. But, like, if you go in thinking, where the fuck's Michael Jordan, you're obviously going to be disappointed.
Exactly. I think that's the thing you got to know going in, is it's not a basketball film. It's a corporate film. It's if you think you're going to go, you go to see Rocky or Creed, you think, oh, I'm going to go see some boxing. You're like, oh, I'm going to go see Air, so I'm going to go see some basketball. It's not the same.
Exactly.
And that's what you need to know going into it. But there's not a weakness nor a strength. It's its own premise. It's its own thing, and it does really well with what it's set out to do. And I think it's a shame as well. I feel it's quite understated. I feel like not many people have been to see it or even spoken about it too much, in all honesty.
There has been a lot of marketing. Like, obviously, I know that me and you are into films. I watch a lot of trailers, and also I know I'm into, like, the news for films and stuff. But considering it, also the cast is pretty strong as well. So if it was up to me, I'd spent that much money on the cast.
Yeah, there's a lot of players in it.
Yeah, I would have pushed for a bigger marketing budget. But I think, like a lot of things nowadays, and what we touched at the top of the episode, is that I don't know how they must make their money on, like, the views or whatever. But they're gonna, a lot of people watching this will, like, just watch it on Amazon Prime. Like, I don't know apart from you.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who's seen it at the cinema. And, like, I reckon in a couple of weeks, a few people would have watched it on Prime. But that'll be it, like.
Yeah, I think that may be to the detriment as well, actually, of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, because they had the same sort of issue with The Last Duel. Nobody really saw it, and it's only once it went to streaming, like we mentioned before when we spoke about The Last Duel, is that it's not a cinema film that you can really market because of the sensitivity of the situations that occur in the film. It's something that on streaming, it's a bit easier to market because it's people in the safety of their own homes and they can sit and back and enjoy it rather, sort of thing. So I feel like maybe that's how this sort of film, it's hard to market it because it's not a basketball film. Maybe that was part of its detriment, and people wanted to see a documentary of Michael Jordan, not a documentary of Nike. I don't know if there's got to be some sort of truth to that, but I'm not in the mind of every person around the world, so I don't know what everyone's thinking. But
I feel like when you marketed it, I think it was marketed in a good way, in the sense that it was the story of Michael Jordan and Nike, and that's what it is. Don't get me wrong, but that's what does make it intriguing. Another big player now, just looking at it, reminds me as it is how good the actor Chris Messina, who plays the agent for Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah, and he's like screaming down the phone at him, and he's like "fuck you," and yeah,
it's so chaotic. Like him and Matt Damon's, rivalry is absolutely spot on. So that's worth watching itself. With how entertaining that is. It gives me Mark Wahlberg in The Parted vibes. He does. It gives me Mark.
Yeah. Or Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, very Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
I mean, Tom Cruise really pushes the bar high, but for that particular bit, but yeah, it's kind of like on that level where it's just like really screaming down the phone like "fuck you."
Funny looking at this on IMDb now. Floki, isn't it, from Vikings, as Horst Dassler?
Gustav, is it Gustav?
Yeah, Gustav Skarsgård.
Skarsgård, yeah.
Yeah, I think he plays one of the Adidas guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. I do remember seeing him in the film.
But yeah, he plays one of the Adidas guys. But no, as much as you can spoil something, which is very much a biopic, but here it is. Here's spoilers.
Before we get into the juicy spoilers, we'd like to take a moment to thank you for listening to us. And to help further our aspirations, we would forever appreciate it were you to like, subscribe, and follow us on your preferred platforms. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Instagram with our handle, ScreenHour. And if you'd like to participate in an episode, leave your thoughts on what you'd like to see us cover next. Now, time for those spoilers. You have been warned.
The scene I was referring to with Chris Tucker is, when when the Jordans actually go to the Nike headquarters.
Oh, when they invite them in.
That bit where Chris Tucker's character comes in, and it's just so awkward when he's just chatting shit, and he's saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. I went to a burger place," and I was like, "Oh, it was raining, and why were the white people scared of rain?" And he just rambled loads.
Yeah,
and it just seemed really weird. And I think it was to show how much they were floundering, or the picture was going wrong, until Sonny done his speech. I think that's what it was mainly to show. I don't know, that everything else made sense.
I don't know if it was a way to connect. Yeah, I don't know if it was a way to connect, sort of like, you've been to see the fat cats, as it were, whereas here we feel like we're more organically grown sort of thing, and we are a part of the real world. So I don't know if there was some sort of like, I'm the average Joe too sort of thing. I don't know if that's a thing there. And I could be wrong here. I could be way off point, but I think they mention it in the film where they're like, they need Chris Tucker to be the one to invite them. No, wait, is Michael Jordan's dad? He says, you're the only brother here and you arrive late or something, and I think they wanted Chris Tucker there.
But yeah, exactly. So
I don't know if they wanted Chris Tucker there to be sort of like that bridge to sort of help the initial.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. So why would he be late? I don't know. I just found that mad. Because I know beforehand they have that discussion with Ben Affleck, the CEO, being late, and Matt's like, "No, you're going to come in late because you're going to say how busy you are and that you wanted to make time for the Jordans." So that makes sense. That the play of that
Yes, yeah.
and stuff. But I don't know, that came across cringy. But all the other like scenes with Chris Tucker in are quite like, emotionally weighted, or they make sense. The ones with, like everything with Matt Damon in. That's something I'm quite glad they done. It was like it wasn't hand fisted too much, but it was like it was one scene and they like just referenced it a couple of times. Is Matt Damon like going to Vegas and then him like having fucking up on his first on that like second sitting he was in Vegas. He's doing well and like a typical gambler. He bets again even though he's got loads to cash in and he fucks it. Don't like it doesn't fall down to him, so he loses it all again. And then in a couple of scenes in, like he's asking about to like you reference just to put all the budget into Michael Jordan, and Ben Affleck saying you're too much of a gambler, you just love gambling. Like I know you like get to Vegas and piss your money away, and like you don't like gamble it all on this one kid. And obviously, Matt Damon does like persuade him to do it and give the budget. But what I liked about that is he wasn't too hand-fisted. They put the one scene in of him gambling, and it was referenced, and it wasn't just like that. Matt Damon wasn't just a one-note character in it.
Yeah, it wasn't. Is it Flight with Denzel Washington, where it's all about his alcohol problem, and they just overly show him being an alcoholic, sort of thing. I mean, granted, that is probably like the pretense of the whole film, but they just really overemphasize the fact that he's an alcoholic. Whereas in this, they just give that sort of thing of like, yeah, he's a gambling addict, and here he is doing that, and then there's sort of mentions here and there about it, but they don't throw it at us continuously.
That's what I mean. I just like that he shows that he's got a gambling like tendency. He doesn't say he's an addict. Doesn't say like he does it loads. He just shows that people know he's a bit of a gambler. So they're a bit of distrust on him for all putting it all on Michael Jordan. So yeah, I like that they've done that. Him and Ben Affleck's chemistry is well, but like you said, more so, most of it is between him and Jason Bateman. I really like the actor. I've got the IMDb up now. I'll tell you his name. Matthew Meyer, the guy who plays Pete, the guy who actually physically makes the shoes. He makes the prototype.
Oh, he got a bit of a lisp or something.
Yeah, he had a bit of a lisp. I love how nerdy he was. I love how he looked the shoe.
I've seen him in a few things actually, and he's always been an interesting character. But he felt really warm and welcoming in this. Actually, he felt like a really sort of just a really jovial, like he loves his jobs.
Just felt like good vibes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in Gone Baby Gone as well. So that's probably how maybe he knows Ben Affleck. No, I think it's a weird film. I'd recommend it if you're into those type of films. I honestly would. I'd put it as a green badge, but like for a certain type of person who likes slow burn film.
Yeah, I say it's not something that's gonna be for everyone. If you don't mind watching like biopics or sort of documentary style sort of films, it's not going to be for you. There's no action, there's no basketball. It's just very sort of subtle, methodical, grounded filmmaking. And it's again the music we've mentioned, the synth pops of the 80s. It really helps push the film along, and you really get a sense of the film, and you sort of just say it's enjoyable, And if you've got Prime, it feels like a no-brainer because you're already paying the subscription. It's just a film you can watch for free.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. You're not putting you out any more than if you've already got it, you've got it. So like, yeah.
Yeah, I say it's a fun one, to be honest.
And sometimes it's nice. As much as I love seeing like John Wick or martial arts, people getting their shit kicked out of them, or cool action scenes or whatever. Sometimes it's nice to watch a bit of a more slow burn film. It really is a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. I don't disagree with you. I say it's a mood that you have. It's a mood that you're in, and you're like, what, I'm feeling this. I'm gonna go for it.
Quite the polar opposite film I've got for my moment of the week. This is something I've definitely got to recommend. And it's a film that's had like quite a lot of award buzz and stuff, but it's annoyingly it's a film which hasn't been like anywhere. So Aftersun, starring Paul Mescal and Frankie, young actress called Frankie, who play and the character called Sophie. It's more of a premise film than it is a film which is got a very linear plot, but it's probably one of the more emotional films I've watched in the last few years. And Kieran says just about a mood you're in. It's a film which like more so conveys emotion and mood than plot, in the sense that we used to like in not to like go off on too much of a tangent. In theatre studies, there's a theatre practitioner called Arto, I think, or Arto.
Anthony and Arto, I think it is.
That's it, yeah, spot on. And he was theatre of cruelty and things like that. He basically like he was quite intense or whatever.
Yeah.
But his whole thing was like it was to be really intense and to make you feel. And don't get me wrong, he's not in this film. There's no throwing of blood like Arto used to do in his theatre productions or whatever.
Well, it was cutting an eye open, wasn't it? Was his thing.
Yeah, and just mad shit like that. But what I'm trying to get at with this film is there's a lot of just very basic stuff which happens, like father and daughter chats and stuff. Like it's set on they go on holiday, whether it to be Greece or Spain. It might even been Turkey. I don't know, just a hot country. And it's very barely alluded to where they go. And the father and daughter, the daughter's 10 or 11, and Paul Mescal's our age or a bit older. He's a young actor, as everybody knows. He's from Normal People mainly, but it's mostly about his mental health and him bringing up and looking after his daughter on this holiday. And most of the scenes are him just bonding with her, looking after her, or every now and again you get a glimpse of him having a breakdown. And I won't spoil it at all because I really recommend anybody watching it. But particularly people of our generation, the reason I find it, me and Charlotte found it quite upsetting, is it's the actor, well, the writer and director, Charlotte Wells. It's her, like, I think it's like her first official, like, directorial debut. She's our age, and it's a very 90s film, to the point where they have a waterproof camera. And my dad had that waterproof camera, and it's like a yellow and blue one, and like even the music, again, we touched on like music in there, and we discussed it a lot of times. How like music can make like such an impact on a film when it's used well.
It can transport you, can't you? It's like a time machine.
And it's like Kieran says, it's like good as a good time machine. And it's the Saturday night songs on there, or like with a dance, like, and like, that was everywhere. And like I think the Macarinas on there and like shit like that, but also like just classic 90s bangers.
Hey, Macarena.
And it takes you back type of thing. But no, it's particularly towards the end, and people have already watched it, they know what song I'm talking about. But the Queen song Under Pressure, that's used, and it's used in such a intense but emotional way. The only thing I can knock it for, and the film has nothing to do with this really, is I'm lucky that, you know, even though I live in the little, like, the Welsh Swansea Valleys, we have, like, you know, we're quite cosmopolitan. We've got our own art centre, and it was on in the art centre, but it just hasn't been on cinema, despite it, like Paul Mescal getting nominated for an Oscar for it. It just hasn't been on in Odeon. It wasn't in View or whatever. It's an A24 film again, it's another positive, but no, it's great. It's honestly great. If I was to give like anything more than a green badge, if I gave anything higher, like if start, I don't know, super green badge,
top tier, yeah,
the highlighter green badge, I'd give it that, or I'd give it gold with tits on top. But it's honestly great. They're weird because it's honestly just about he's like a young dad, but he's split up from the mom, so he's took the young daughter on holiday without the mom, so it's just those two. And it's honestly just about that, but the way it conveys that, it feels, another one is like, to its strong point, it just feels so nostalgic. And it's mostly about when you're a kid, you don't realise, especially when like you're under the age of being a teenager, probably like 10 or something, don't realise that your parents are their own people in their own right, which have stuff going on.
Yeah, they had their own childhoods. He's like, what? You weren't always 40.
They had their own childhood. They've got their own mental health issues. They've got jobs and they've got finance stuff, and that it's mostly about that and how the child probably perceives. It's not like a corny POV type of thing, but no, it's great.
So you watch that in your local art centre, but where can we watch it?
This is my point. Is you can watch it on. I think you could watch it on YouTube. So if I go on YouTube now, if I go watch Aftersun online UK, you can watch it on Moonbee, which is their production company. I think MUBI.
Movie, yeah.
You can rent it on Amazon Prime, not Amazon Prime, Amazon Video, because they're on Mubi. It's won 3 BAFTAs. It was like
It's interesting that it's won these BAFTAs. He was up for an Oscar, but it's not that accessible. That's a bit odd. That's poor from the publishing standpoint, really. You want to throw your film out there.
it is, but what's so weird about it is A24. But I'm not I'm 90% sure A24 behind it. Yeah, I am I know A24 behind it as well, but they're not. They should have pushed it more, as Kieran says.
I mean, I understand, trying to put your film on Netflix or Disney or whatever like that. There's going to be costs involved, and they're going to take, cut of viewings or whatever, So I don't know if that's, the film itself didn't make enough money, and they're not going to get enough back if they try and force it on these things. But if you don't push it on those things, you're not going to get the money back anyway, and not because no one's ever going to see it. So it's a catch-22 really, but it's interesting that it wasn't pushed much. I mean, we moaned about Air not being pushed too hard, but that's going to have a much bigger budget than this film, and this film was up for Oscars and won BAFTAs, and it's not on anything, so that's a bit odd. I mean, it could be early calls, but didn't it release in October or so last year?
It released a while ago. Again, might just be because it was in the art centre. It's like Kieran says, it came out in 2022. It's apparently you can watch it on Prime Video. I might have to get fact checked for that.
Is it a British production, or is it an American production?
Yeah, it's a British production. Yeah.
British actors and stuff then.
Yeah, it's Paul Mescal. I don't know where he was born, but he was.
Well, I know he's Brit, but I wasn't sure if the rest.
He's Irish, yeah. He's Irish.
Or if Cillian Murphy heard me say that, he'd be triggered.
He might be quite offended being called British, to be fair, but I don't know how, as an Irish actor, now where he stands on that.
You see that clip of Cillian Murphy? He goes, I think you'll see him and Tom Holland are being interviewed for Inception. And they were like, oh, you're both British actors. And he goes, I'm not British. And he goes, you're from Ireland. He goes, yes, so I'm Irish. But you're British. And he's like, fucking Irish.
He gets out talking about it, don't know. Honestly, it's great. That's probably, I don't want to say it's my favourite film of the year so far.
Oh, that's a big, yeah.
Because I feel like I've seen some really good films this year. I think if I surely just looked at our episodes this year, I'd probably say, I don't know, but it's in my top 5 easy.
Well, it's good that you've got an IP, an individual product that is, something that you consider as your favourite one.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what's so refreshing about it is if I had to, I could have done a whole episode about it, but it's hard for me, do such a thing which hasn't got again, to its own strength, it hasn't got a lot of plot, so it's hard to discuss about particulars as well. But again, all I can describe is how it made me feel, and you haven't watched it as well. But again, it's a bad point in itself that it's hard to watch, as in hard to physically watch, not hard to watch as in it's hard to watch, it's upsetting, or it's graphic, anything like that. I'd definitely recommend it. What have you watched this week?
There's some stuff I've watched this week, but I can't discuss it because I know we're going to do an episode on it. Citadel on Amazon. I know Mikey needs to catch up and watch a couple of episodes of that. So I won't go into particulars with that one. But I mean, talking about sort of emotional sort of film, I watched a film. Oh shit! I'm gonna figure out when it came out now. It came out in 2020, right? And it's called Two Hearts. It has got really bad reviews. Right, it's got 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.3 on IMDb, 4.2 on Amazon. But I watched it on Netflix probably a month ago now, And the way you were describing Aftersun sort of reminded me of this film. Now, I don't understand why this film got so heavily critiqued. I can understand some things, but it seems a bit malicious, the way it was critiqued. It's, in an essence, it's about organ donating, and it does feel like organ donating propaganda. They spend all this money on a film for organ donating propaganda to get you to become an organ donor. I can understand that sort of viewpoint you can have on the film. The film is not the best written script I've ever come across. It's not the best lines and acting I've come across, but I feel like the heart and the emotion in it is really good. I feel like I'm trying to flog a damn squid, but I cried really heavily watching it, to be honest. I won't lie.
I'm watching, I'm looking at the IMDb for it now, and it looks like American Pie. I've took a hit of. Yeah, it looks like an American Pie film has tried to make a marketing for organ donor, like you say.
The very essence is you follow this lad, and he's telling a story of another lad, right? But then this other lad grows up and he's older, but he's still telling the story of this person, and you're basically trying to understand of how are these people connected, how they're intertwined. And spoilers, you find out that one of them has a real bad lung or kidney. I can't remember what it was now, but they needed a new organ, basically.
Hold on a minute, it's not a heart. What?
Wait, no. Is it a heart? Why would it be called two hearts? I generally can't remember now. Oh well, I should have written it down. It might actually be a heart now that you've said it. Fuck. But basically, he needs an organ, and one of them passes out. So the guy that's telling the story, the young lad, he's telling the story, and he passes out in his dormitory, and he's rushed to hospital, and then his family are trying to, convince him to wake up out of his coma, right? And then he wakes up out of his coma, and then he carries on telling the story about this other lad who's now found an organ donor, right? And he's able to basically live. And then the lad that's then telling the story continues telling his own story as well. And, he finally gets married to the girl. They get a kid. She's pregnant. He's getting his dream job, right? And they're like, wow, this is going at breakneck speed of everything going really well for him. And then you kind of get a bit suspicious, like, why is this?
And then he has a heart attack.
No.
And then he needs a heart transplant.
Then he says, I wish I could tell you all of this was true, but unfortunately I never woke up on the table. So this life that I wish I had, this life that I envisioned, never happened. And then you find out that it was his heart, his lung, his kidney, whatever, that was donated into this other chap. And this other chap's got his own life story and his own loves, his own children. And he then wants to get in contact with the parents of the lad that delivered that he got the organ from. But you can't. There's the private, what's it called, patient confidentiality and things like that. So they have to sort of do redacted messages back and forwards till he can meet them, because he's like, I want to meet you, and I want to know about your son and who he was as a person. And he sort of meets them, and then they all cry and hug it out, sort of thing. And that is the film. But the way that it was, as I said, it's not brilliant, but it was just the emotion. It was just the parents losing the son, and then the girlfriend that he was trying so hard to get. It was sort of, there was like a bit of rom-com bit going on, and he finally gets the girl, and then he ends up having this. He collapses, and then he's rushed into hospital, and then he actually ends up dying, and and everyone's sort of crying after him. You just can't help but cry along, because it's so fucking heartbreaking, and you do feel emotionally connected to it. I don't know if that night in particular I just wanted to cry. I don't know.
It sounds worth watching, and also
really hit hard. Honestly, again, I feel like I'm trying to flog a damn squid. It's not a brilliant film, and I understand why it would be rated fairly low. And I understand that, it can easily be seen as organ donor propaganda, but the emotion in the film is real. You really feel that connect there, and like I say, I absolutely sobbed my eyes out, and I could easily give it a red badge, but I could easily give it a yellow badge. You know, it's right there. So I'm going to say it's not brilliant, as I said, but it's...
I don't know. So it's not brilliant, or it's brilliant. You said so many things about brilliant, I got confused.
The emotion is brilliant, but the film is not.
All right.
Again, like I say, our moments in the weeks don't have to be what was the best thing I've seen this week. It's just, this is something that made me feel emotional, like yours made you feel emotional. I just thought it'd be something worth mentioning, to be honest. But
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say watch Aftersun. Then maybe don't watch Two Hearts.
yeah, I think Aftersun is definitely better. But yeah, Two Hearts. I mean, if you've got the opportunity and you don't mind watching some,
For what it's worth, I want to watch Two Hearts because you've made, out of anything, you've made me intrigued.
yeah, I think you got to go along with the right. Because to be honest, I saw, like, you know, the previews they do on Netflix just before you watch something. It always like plays like a segment, and it's a bit where he's meeting the girl on the plane, and she's like, "I'm scared of flying. Will you sit with me and hold my hand?" She's like, "You know, you're a grown man," sort of thing. Like, no. And then like I was like, "Oh, it's like a rom-com sort of thing." I was like, I quite enjoy a rom-com, so I went into it and I was like, "This was not a rom-com." It lied to me.
That sounds a bit brutal for a rom-com.
It was like, you know, Marley and Me. You know, you had a bit of a rom-com sort of thing there, but then it was like the dog dies and you're like, oh, this is fucking depressing, and I'm crying my heart out. Whereas it's like that sort of feeling, but it's not as good as Marley and Me. But like I say, it's trashy. Is it trashy? I don't know. I really don't know how to.
I think sometimes there's a place for corny stuff there, and also like I think you could put us as being like, you know, I don't want to say professional because spoilers, we don't get paid yet, but you can make that happen if you like, subscribe, share us, we get monetized, we can be professionals then. But no, us as critics, like, you know, we're kind of chopping our nose off to spite our face saying this statement, but I think Kieran would agree with me, there's a mood for like almost 99% of films. Like if you're in a certain mood, they will just hit you in the right way.
Yeah, so I absolutely love rom-coms. I can watch them whenever, all day.
I know Batman and Robin's a terrible film, but I'll still watch Batman and Robin because I know like it's so corny and it's so bad.
I know exactly what you mean. Like sometimes you just need that sort of not mind-numbing experience, but you just need something just to sit back, relax, and just cry a little or laugh a little. You know, you don't need to watch the greatest film you've ever seen in your life.
Exactly. Well, thank you as always for listening. That has been the episode on Air, Aftersun and Two Hearts. Just share the love. Share us on all your social medias.
Yeah. In fact, I've got a little story for you, actually. A couple of weeks ago, right, I was coming back from work and I was overtaking this...
Is this for me personally or the listeners?
I can leave it. I'll leave it in the podcast because it's actually quite interesting. But there was me, car in front, and then a truck, and then there was like an overtaking lane as you go up the hill, like a crawler lane. So me and the car were like obviously going to overtake, and then the car pulls in front of the van, and I'm like, oh, I've still got some wheelie left. I'll keep on going so I can overtake this car as well, and then, you know, I've got a clear track all the way home, so I'm not stuck behind this car. So I just put my foot down a bit more, got in front of him, right? And then at the top of the hill, there's a junction, and I saw this car, right, at the junction. You just get a sense if they're going to pull out, don't you? And you're like, don't fucking do it, don't fucking do it. And then they started, like, and then I saw a bus coming the other way, and I was like, well, they won't do it now, will they? And they just rolled across. They didn't even, like, put the foot down. They just rolled across the junction. I was like, fucking squeaky bum time. Like, they just about missed the bus. But there's, like, a central reservation in the middle of the road where, you know, if you're going to be turning right into that junction, you can sort of pull off so you're not in the way of the cars coming past. And I was like, well, they'll stay in the central reservation and wait for me, the guy behind me, and then the van to come past, right? But they just carried on rolling, and I sort of like went past and looked in the rearview mirror, and it was smashed straight into the car behind me, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, so
you avoided a crash?
I just couldn't believe it. So basically, I avoided a crash by overtaking a car. Because I was like, I could slap behind him, but I do have a bit more welly left I can give just so I can get in front of him.
Let me get this straight. By being a bad driver, you avoided a crash.
Not a bad driver, just an impatient driver.
So being an impatient / bad driver, you saved yourself from being crashed into a terrible, even worse bad driver in the crash.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck is my luck right now? I was like, I just couldn't comprehend the moment.
At ScreenHour, we do not condone impatient driving, but I'm very glad you're fine and you never got crashed into.
Yeah, I'm fine. The car's fine. Don't know about the person behind me, but it was such a bizarre situation. But then, it's like, spoke to my parents about it, and then my mom told me the story about Seth MacFarlane, and I don't know how I didn't already hear this, but Seth MacFarlane, he was doing some comedy gig somewhere, like way back in 2001, I think it was, and he was just doing a comedy gig, and he's I think he went out and had some drinks with some friends in the evening, and then he had to wake up for a flight in the morning. So he wakes up a bit late because he'd been drinking. He rushes to the airport, and he basically gets to the gates, and they say, "I'm sorry, everyone's boarded. You can't get on the plane." And he's like, "No, I can see the plane. It's right there. I can get on the plane." They're like, "No, I'm sorry, it's too late now." So he's like, "Oh, bollocks, I've got to wait around for the next plane, which is like another hour or 2 hours." Long story short, the plane that he missed was the second plane that hit the Twin Towers.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, that's mad, that, isn't it?
How fucking mad is that? Like, it's just one of those situations where something happens in your life and it just worked out for you, and you're like, holy fucking shit. Like, how mad is that? That's insane. And the thing is, as well, he was like, I can see the plane right there, let me on. I mean, it's a good thing they didn't. Fucking hell.
I bet he's buzzing now.
But I say, that was just a bizarre little story I thought I'd throw in for a little bit of enjoyment for people. I don't know.
Your brush with death.
My brush with death.
But share the love. Share it.
Share the love. Yeah.
Share our channel. Share the love for ScreenHour. Share the love for 2 upcoming film journalists who are going to take over.
We're going to take over the world.
Going to take over YouTube, take over the stratosphere. We're going to make IGN our bitch.
In our next episode, join us with Christopher Nolan as we discuss Oppenheimer.
And he won't be chained up with our radiators. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, we appreciate it as always, and we'll see you in the next one.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.